Hello all, I'm Josh, this is Josh Build Stuff, and if you know me, you know that I like cars. If you don't know me, hello all, I'm Josh, this is Josh Build Stuff, and we've come full circle. Today we're talking about 4 all-new LEGO Speed Champion sets, all of which were released in March 2023. The single cars now cost $25, and the double pack costs $35, which, if you don't know, is more than they used to cost. Are they worth that increased price? Let's talk about that today. The 4 sets and 5 cars depicted are the McLaren Solus GT and McLaren F1 LM in the 2-pack, the Ferrari 812 Competizione, the Porsche 963, and the Pagani Utopia. What do all of these cars have in common? Well, they're all new LEGO Speed Champion sets, and they're all ridiculously expensive and exclusive vehicles, which would be difficult to obtain even for the ridiculously wealthy. But now all of us poors can get our hands on some decently accurately recreated versions of these vehicles in LEGO form. We're starting with the McLarens because I think this will be the most popular set in this wave, and I think it contains both the most popular and the least popular vehicles in the same set. But first, let's talk about the least popular car in the most popular set. It's the McLaren Solus LS. Is this car exciting? Well, I'd say it's a little soulless. As far as my limited research taught me, this car was originally designed as a part of a video game, which explains its ridiculous looking design, but now it's being turned into an actual car, at least 25 actual cars. Again, it's going to be millions of dollars or something. The actual car, I think, looks pretty good, but I like video games, and video games about cars, so maybe I'm biased. Of course I'm biased, but this is my review. The Solus contains a lot of very sharp angles, a lot of triangles used throughout, and I think the car itself looks very cool. Again, I don't know that it's the most accurate representation of the actual car, but I still like a lot of the features on this thing, namely that very thin fin going down the middle of it. The rear of the vehicle and the rear of all of these vehicles is what usually impresses me. Throughout all of these cars, there's a lot of snot used. If you're a LEGO fan, you know that snot means studs not on top. If you're not a LEGO fan, you know that snot is a nasal discharge. But none of us really care about that car, do we? As vehicle enthusiasts who clearly know a lot about vintage vehicles, we're all really here for that McLaren F1 LM. McLaren F1 is the granddaddy of all supercars. It competed in Le Mans and all this other stuff. It became iconic in its own time. And then the LM is an even more exclusive version of that already very exclusive vehicle. Only like 5 of these were made, maybe 6 of them, but the original prototype was kept by McLaren themselves. Fun fact, that original LM was actually promised to Lewis Hamilton if he won 2 championships with the McLaren Formula 1 team. However, he only won 1 championship with the team, and now who knows where that guy is at this point. Alright, let's get down and dirty with the details of this McLaren F1. From a side profile, I think it's relatively well represented here. Then again, the lines on this F1 are a little simpler than some of the other cars we're looking at. Relatively few stickers used, which is always nice, a printed canopy piece, which is always nice, and a lot of cool snot techniques used here, which you can kind of see on the hood there. Obviously that is built in this direction more or less on the bottom. I think part of this is held on using like some broken pieces. On the bottom, you can see that this front part is actually held on by little pins that just slot into some little stud holes there. I think that's very cool, just to achieve that cool nose angle. From the side, I definitely wouldn't say that this car just looks like a knockoff version of an Acura NSX, because that might offend some people. From the rear, it looks like a very flat design, but on the real car, that's how this thing actually looks. I like that the exhaust is done using little binocular pieces. The only weird part here is that the side, there's like a indent here, and then there is like a bumped out line through the middle. I don't think that it's as well shown here with the paddle here. Then again, at this scale, it's hard to represent tiny little details like that. I think these triangular pieces are a new or newer piece. We'll see more of that in another vehicle we'll be looking at today, but overall, like I said, pretty cool looking car. Of course, this model is portrayed in what is known as McLaren's signature papaya orange color. Of course, LEGO does not have a papaya orange color, so they've opted for bright orange. I'm sure the designers saw that and said, close enough. To which I would reply, I agree, it's close enough. Personally, I'm just glad McLaren's signature color isn't like summer squash yellow, because that produce is out of season, though it probably smells better than this. I don't know if this is rotten or if this is how papayas smell, but either way, don't get papayas. Can I go on a brief tangent about this McLaren F1 before we move on to those other cars? Thank you. You know what I always say? Don't judge a man by his facial hairs or his house repairs. You know what else I always say? You don't have to know everything about something to be a fan of that thing. What am I hinting at here? Let's use a hypothetical. Hypothetically, what if someone said they were excited for the new LEGO Speed Champions McLaren Formula 1 car, not knowing that it was actually this nice, well-known supercar? Hypothetically, what if that person also said they were a fan of cars? Hypothetically, what if other people in the community said, how could you call yourself a car fan if you don't know the McLaren F1? To which I would reply, or to which hypothetically someone would reply, you don't have to know everything about something to be a fan of something. So that's my mini mid-video message. You attract a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, assuming you're trying to attract a bunch of flies. Let's not gatekeep this awesome hobby. Let's not say, how could you not know about the McLaren F1? Instead, you could say, hey, I heard you like supercars. Have you heard about the McLaren F1? If not, you should definitely check it out. It's cool, and LEGO's just made a model of it, and there's this cool guy named Josh from Josh Builds Stuff who's doing a review of that car. Go watch it. Look at that, we spread a fun message and we spread some positivity. That's the end of my rant for today. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me on the rant. There's more video here. Let's talk about more cars. The Ferrari 812 Competizione is a very nice looking car. It'd be weird for LEGO to make a model of a not nice looking car, right? But we'll talk about the Porsche in a second. On the actual vehicle, the side profile of this car definitely doesn't just look like every Dodge Viper made since the mid-90s, and the LEGO version is relatively accurate in that it also doesn't look like the side profile of every Dodge Viper made since the mid-90s. As for the build details of this set, I think this is a quintessential LEGO Speed Champions car at this point. It's got very cool angles that are not easily achievable. There are gaps in places where you wouldn't think that you could make something that small and subtle in a car this small of a size. However, like the quintessential Speed Champions car, there are a few too many stickers used here, but I don't think they detract from the overall look of the car. The rear spoiler of this car is particularly impressive because of the seamless angle it's able to achieve. The exhaust pipes on this are actually stud shooters turned on their side. A tiny gap in the front of this car. The hood is just subtly lower than the headlight pieces, which are printed, which is very nice. There's also this, I don't know, boomerang shaped fin or wing or big old hole in the hood of this thing, which is mostly depicted using pieces, but also a couple of stickers. As previously stated, all those small, sharp, subtle angles like the indents in the door of this car, well, those are all better viewed from a distance. Much like LEGO mosaic art, like Commander Cody here, well, he looks a little better when you take a few steps back. The same has been said about me, and yes, I'm reusing that joke from my full video of this Commander Cody mosaic, which you can find on the channel now. However, much like Commander Cody, or this presenter's face in 4K, when you look too closely, you start to see the imperfections, the blemishes. And those previously subtle details start to detract from the overall look of the thing, and you find yourself wishing for more smooth, simple surfaces. Then again, this is all highly subjective and should only be taken at face value. Just not this face. Also, the minifigures in these sets aren't usually worth mentioning, but in the case of the Ferrari figure, it's funny because LEGO's own description says, a driver minifigure with helmet and wig. Is this LEGO's subtle dig at Ferrari owners, saying that they're usually middle-aged men suffering midlife crises going bald? Maybe, but that's not a subject I know much about, because this is all natural. All naturally receding, that is. We've now reached the Porsche portion of this video, which should be like that one Pelican. Brief. Now's a good time to go take a bathroom break, grab another cup of coffee as I talk about the Porsche 963, or the full name is the Porsche 963 Le Mans Daytona Hybrid. This is how we beat climate change, people, by making our race cars only partially use gasoline. This model is based on what I believe is an endurance race car. The paint job can be seen here, and the very smooth aerodynamic lines of the actual car can be seen here. And LEGO has done their best to recreate some of those lines in this smaller form. They've also done their best to recreate that honestly nice looking paint job, but when those lines are depicted by blocks and those paint jobs are depicted using stickers, well, it seems like this model falls a little short. One particular point of praise I have on this Porsche model is in an area where I personally don't get much praise. It's got a cute little rear end. A couple of those new 1x1 rounded snot pieces are used here to make pieces face every which direction, and I just love the fact that everything here is compact and squeezed into that neat little space, and then when attached to the rear of the vehicle, it just looks seamless. There are a couple other features of this car worth pointing out, however, I don't have the time to do so because I've spent so long applying all of these stickers. The Pagani Utopia is the last, but definitely not least car in this Speed Champions wave. The name of this car is obviously derived from the literary work written by Thomas More in the 1500s. It was a socio-political commentary about an idealistic society, and when I think that, I think supercar. That, or there are a lot of other cars in this wave and I ran out of time when doing my research. That being said, aside from people's opinions on the actual Pagani Utopia, which from what I can see are mixed because we're all supercar critics in our own right, this model of this car is one of my, if not my favorite from this bunch. Sorry to the papaya purists out there. Why would I say something so controversial? Well, I've been reading a lot of Thomas More lately, and also there's a lot about this car worth appreciating. 1, doesn't rely too heavily on stickers. 2, printed headlight pieces. 3, amazing design techniques, specifically in the rear of the vehicle here, which we'll talk about in a second. And 3 or 4, or whatever reason we're on, the lines on the actual car are more simple, and so the lines on the model are more simple. There's no paddles in the doorways of this car, and I think overall the thing comes together, I don't know, a little more cleanly. The camera's starting to overheat. I really gotta switch to that hybrid technology, so I'll go over some of these features quickly. The entire rear of this vehicle is obviously attached via hinges because it can rock up and down, but that gives it this upward facing angle. And then when you fold in these little sloped grate pieces, well, they just fit so smoothly against the back of those fender pieces, and man oh man, is that satisfying. Also, a lot of Speed Champions cars lack actual doors. Not in the Pagani here, it's got 4 doors. Just not where you'd expect them to be. Of course, you've got that signature quad exhaust coming out of the back, in this case, using a printed piece. Overall, excellent use of pieces. I think the curves in this car are really well achieved and defined, and that's why this car is maybe my favorite of the bunch. But I'm saying maybe because I'm afraid to offend people. So overall, if I may channel my inner surfer dude, sick wave, brah. LEGO chose some amazing cars and a Porsche, and they represented them decently in LEGO form. Obviously, we don't love the increased prices, but a necessary evil to obtain some beautiful sets. As always, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hey, if you're a fan of supercars, you should look up the origin of the McLaren F1 LM. Really fascinating stuff. Again, thanks so much for watching, and side note, I'll see you next time. Oh my God. What is that? Is this rotten, or is this how papayas smell? This was a mistake. It's not a steak, it's a papaya. Oh, now it's on my fingers. Goodness gracious. That's no joke. I'm just glad McLaren's signature. Ugh. Don't inhale.